favor. Joining me here in Washington, the chair of the House Intelligence Committee, Congressman Devin Nunes of California, who's also a member of the Trump transition team. Congressman, welcome back to Fox News Sunday.
It's great to be here in person.
Before we get to that, let's talk first about the terrible attack in Fort Lauderdale where 5 people were killed, 6 people were wounded. Any evidence this is terror-related?
Well, the investigation's ongoing. Clearly, this person walked into the FBI, we know this now, and said that he was watching ISIS videos. It's sometimes, I think, going to be hard in these situations to know where someone who has mental illness and also is an ISIS follower, and where that's sometimes they can be intertwined. And I think we just have to let the FBI go through this and see if there is any actual data or evidence to show that this was an ISIS follower.
Of course, the big question people have is how this happened, and could it have happened again, particularly with the guy having walked into the FBI office. Should he have been on a no-fly list? Should he have been allowed to carry a gun, check it in his baggage, and take it on the flight with him?
Well, you're right. This is the big challenge that the FBI faces with, there's investigations going on in all 50 states with ISIS followers and people who are who claim they're ISIS followers, and so some of these cases get closed, and I think in this case, this one probably shouldn't have been closed.
As chair, you say it shouldn't have been closed.
Shouldn't have been closed.
So you think the FBI messed up?
Well, look, I think the FBI would tell you that this is not what the FBI wants. I mean, they do a very good job, but obviously they missed this one.
As chair of House Intelligence, you received the same classified report on Friday. Any doubt in your mind that Russian President Putin directed this attack and that at some point, not originally, but at some point, it became an effort to stop Clinton and help Trump?
So 6 months ago, I publicly came out and said that this was the biggest intelligence failure since 9/11, was our failure to understand Putin's plans and intentions. So this has been going on for a long time. We've known that Russia is a very sophisticated bad actor in the cyber realm. Many members of Congress, not just members of the House Intelligence Committee, have been warning the Obama administration about Russia's continued cyber attacks on this country, and they did nothing. And so now, as you look forward, they lose an election, and then it appears like they want to change this narrative into somehow that Russia was responsible for Hillary Clinton losing the election, and I just don't buy that.
No, and I want to make this very clear. There's no indication, despite Russia's efforts, and the intelligence community doesn't say this is why Trump won and she lost. But the two things can be true. They tried to do a campaign, and Trump won a fair and square election. I want to go follow up on this policy issue, though, because you say that Mr. Trump has to be tougher than President Obama was in responding to cyber aggression, especially by the Russians. But I want you to respond to this tweet, which I discussed with Reince Priebus. Trump tweeted this on Saturday. Having a good relationship with Russia is a good thing, not a bad thing. Only stupid people or fools would think that it is bad. This is his first reaction after getting this briefing about Russian interference in the election. It doesn't sound like he's ready to crack down on the Kremlin.
And he wouldn't be the first president to want to be buddies with President Putin. So you had President Clinton, President Bush, President Obama, including Secretary Clinton, who hit the reset button. Don't forget that you had President Obama, who got caught on a hot mic, talking about being able to be more flexible after the election with Vladimir. Clearly, 3 presidents have tried to be friends with Putin. All 3 have failed. And I hope that Donald Trump, he has a lot more information going into this. And I've cautioned his administration to be careful with Putin, because I think he is a bad actor. Although it remains true, the fact of the matter is we would like to be friends with the Russians. I just don't know if it's possible. We've had a lot of experience with Putin. He just doesn't seem to be a guy that we can work with.
As a member, as we said, you're not only head of House Intelligence, you're also a member of the transition team, particularly in these very areas of national security. And I want to ask you about the nomination of Senator Dan Coats to be the Director of National Intelligence. Back when Russia invaded Crimea in 2014, Senator Coats said this: "Does this not remind us of what happened with Hitler in the early 20s and 30s?" And in response, the Kremlin banned him from traveling to Russia. So what does the appointment of a clear hardliner. What does it say about this effort by President-elect Trump and some on his team to try to, or believe they can have better relations with Russia?
Well, as I said before, I think all presidents have been making this mistake. But I think you bring up a good point that Dan Coates is a Russia hawk. Mike Pompeo, the future CIA director, is a Russia hawk. General Mattis, who will be Secretary of Defense, is a Russia hawk. So Donald Trump is surrounding himself with very good people who understand the threat that Russia poses.
Let me just say, you've also got Rex Tillerson, who has done business with Russia and received the Friend of Russia medal, and you have Lieutenant General Mike Flynn, the National Security Advisor, who had dinner with Putin. So, I mean, there's a split inside the administration about Russia.
Yeah, but like I said, Chris, this is not unusual for administrations to want to work with Putin. I mean, all administrations have tried, going back to the first President Clinton when Putin was first put into office. So I just don't see where this is anything different, and I think the news media is trying to blow this, or I say the Democrats are blowing this up, because they're trying to change the narrative of what happened in this election. I am not happy that this report that we were briefed on, just the Gang of Eight was briefed on Friday morning, yet many news media outlets already had the information that was briefed to the Gang of Eight. So this looks like a political rollout of a narrative just a couple weeks before Donald Trump's inauguration. And it bothers me, and I don't think it's good. And the
political rollout by the intelligence community or by the Democrats who were briefed?
By the Obama administration.
Really? So you think this is an effort by the Obama administration to undercut Donald Trump?
How else do you define it? How does the news media have this information before it's briefed to the Gang of Eight?
I want to ask you about another question. President-elect Trump talks about tearing up the nuclear deal with Iran, but the chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, Bob Corker, said this week, leave that alone for a while. There's not going to be a problem. There are sanctions in place against Iran, and they have to meet some standards, at least for the next few years. And the key is to focus on the more immediate threat of North Korea. Your reaction?
Well, I think the Iranian regime continues to be one that is the largest funder of terrorism around the globe, and it has to be dealt with swiftly. And I think the Obama administration has been way too nice to the Iranian regime, who are essentially our terrorists. If you look at North Korea, this is one of the situations I think that people are going to look back as one of the major atrocities in world history. And people are going to ask, why did somebody not act? There are 20 million people living off of eating grass and roots and trying to burn everything just to stay warm in that country. You look at that country, it's one of the worst places I've ever seen.
Let me just interrupt because we're beginning to run out of time. After North Korea announced this week that it's in the final stages of developing an ICBM missile that could reach at least part of the United States, Donald Trump sent out this tweet in which he said at the bottom, "It won't happen." Now, you talk about other presidents. We've tried direct talks. We've tried pressure on China, and it hasn't worked. What is Donald Trump going to do? Do you have any sense what he's going to do to try to stop North Korea from pursuing its?
This is another great example of a country, a nation state, that's conducted cyber attacks against the United States, where President Obama did nothing. So, why are we not responding when North Korea attacked this country, attacked Sony, leaked the information, nothing was done, and so I think what
Did we
I think
not
what
do
Trump
cyber
is,
attacks because we believe that's what we were kind of led to believe, that we took a cyber response.
Well, I don't know about that, but I can tell you that this is a regime that has to be taken seriously. We have to be tough with them, and I think Donald Trump will be tough with them.
Quick question. Are you talking about military action? Take out their nuclear program? Take out their missiles?
You never take that off the table. But we have a very large force in the region, in South Korea, protecting the South Koreans. I think Japan and South Korea have to be very concerned about these ICBMs and their nuclear capability.
Would you urge them to start their own nuclear program?
No, I would not. But we have to have a deterrent, and the United States needs to be that deterrent.
Chairman Nunes, thank you. Thanks for coming in today. Always good to talk with you.